Good morning. I'm Bill Miles with the Hilton Head Island Bluffton Chamber of Commerce, and we're so glad that you could tune in and be with us this morning. Well, Labor Day weekend is now in the books and officially is the summer season. And turned out to be a really good summer season for all of not only Hilton Head Island, but really the entire region. And I hope Labor Day was good for you and got a chance to take a day off and enjoy some R&R. Also, college football. How exciting is it that it's college football season again? And I know many were looking forward to that kickoff during Labor Day, and certainly exciting getting both Carolina teams back in action and being able to follow our favorite teams all throughout the year. You know, it's a busy time of year for us here at the Chamber, and one thing I want you to pay particularly attention to is that of State of the Region. You're going to be hearing more of State of the Region, and the date that that's going to be, who our speakers are, we'll be releasing soon. We know that certainly our local mayors and chair of county council will be alongside of us, making State of the Region another exciting event for us. You know, many factors are going to play into the decision that comes to us in November. And we know that we've been hearing a lot about high gas prices, inflation, workforce challenges, and many other things. And so with those challenges that we're all facing, we thought today it would be good to hear from the economist, our chief economist, Dr. Joey Von Nessen. And Dr. Von Nessen is with the Darla Moore School of Business. He's a gentleman that certainly is no stranger to South Carolina and is working on projects or has worked on projects from BMW to Sonoco, Michelin, Boeing, I believe, and many others. Dr. Von Nessen, thank you for being with us today. It's great to see you, and we look forward to hearing what's in the future.
Well, thank you, Bill. My pleasure. It's great to be here this morning, and I appreciate the opportunity to join you all this morning. And I just want to spend a few minutes with you talking about where things stand today in September of 2022. Now that, as Bill mentioned, we are rapidly approaching the fall months and the end of summer, of course, with Labor Day now behind us. And what are we seeing right now with respect to our economic outlook for the rest of this year and into 2023? So just want to share a few brief comments with you this morning. So to start off, I want to address really one of the major questions that's on everyone's mind and that we hear a lot about. And just a very basic question of whether we're in a recession. Are we in a recession right now? And how can we think about that question? And I think a good way to start is to consider the fact that a recession officially is defined by the NBER, the National Bureau of Economic Research, and they use a variety of metrics to define a recession period in the United States, including GDP growth, including the health of the labor market, inventory levels, retail sales, a lot of different macroeconomic data. And they typically only decide if we're in a recession period long after the fact, because they're trying to put the current economic climate into its historical context. So with that being said, the official answer, are we officially in a recession, is we don't know. We don't know what the NBER is going to, how it's going to label this period. But having said that, despite the fact that we don't know officially, the more unofficial or colloquial definition of a recession is 2 negative quarters of GDP growth. And that is something we have definitely seen in 2022 during the first and second quarters of this year, negative 1.6% in the first quarter, negative 0.6% growth in the second quarter. But the problem with that definition is that normally when we see 2 negative quarters of GDP growth, we also see a broad pullback in most macroeconomic indicators. And again, that represents an unusual factor of 2022, which is that we're not seeing that, at least not yet, primarily because we see a very strong labor market into the summer. We've seen a strong labor market persist throughout the summer of 2022. And in fact, into September, where we are today. So the labor market, if we look at the unemployment rate in South Carolina, still at a historic low at 3.2%. We have more people working in South Carolina today than we've ever had. Unemployment is still low at the national level, 3.7%, and in Beaufort County, in the surrounding Hilton Head area, at 3.0%. So we still very much have a strong labor market in South Carolina and in the U.S., which again is very much unusual from a historical standpoint, given that we've had 2 negative quarters of GDP growth in the first half of the year. So a contracting economy coupled with a strong labor market is something that we don't see very often. So with that being said, then why the concern about a recession going forward? Mainly because we still continue to see high inflation in the US economy now. That has persisted throughout 2022. We still see high inflation today. The headline number, of course, 8.5%, the most recent estimate of our year-over-year inflation estimate. And that basically means that we are still facing a trade-off between high inflation and high interest rates. So if we think about it, we can go down 2 potential paths as we look forward. One is if we continue to see high inflation, that continues to erode the purchasing power of most Americans, including South Carolinians. We've seen over the past year inflation be far higher than wage growth. So that's limiting the amount of consumer spending for individuals because it is cutting into their purchasing power, and that's going to limit economic activity as we move forward. But in response to high rates of inflation, we are seeing the Fed be more proactive with respect to raising interest rates. So how do we combat high inflation? We combat that by raising interest rates, which then tamps down on demand. Raising interest rates limits the or rather raises the cost of borrowing for both businesses and consumers, and that pulls down economic activity as well, limits demand and tamps down on inflation. So regardless of which direction that we go, whether we let inflation remain high and see an erosion of purchasing power, that's going to limit economic activity. Or if we try to tackle high inflation, as we are doing, as the Fed is doing by raising interest rates, that also limits economic activity because it raises the cost of borrowing money. So either way, we're looking at a pullback in economic activity down the road as we move through the rest of 2022 and into 2023. And that's why most economists expect that we are likely to see a mild recession sometime within the next year. Because again, regardless of which path we go down, we are almost inevitably going to see a reduction in overall economic activity. But we do know the path that we're likely to continue down is one of higher interest rates. The Fed has been very clear that is their number one priority, getting inflation under control. We've seen 4 interest rate hikes already in 2022, and we are very likely to see more, at least 2 more rate hikes in 2022. And again, the Federal Reserve has been extremely clear that they're going to continue to be aggressive with respect to raising interest rates further until we see a meaningful decline in inflation. Those are words coming straight from the Fed, a meaningful decline in inflation. So we can expect for these rate hikes to continue for the rest of this year. So as I mentioned, that almost inevitably means that we're going to see a pullback in our economic momentum and likely see a mild recession sometime within the next year. And to put that in perspective, we've seen 5.7% total GDP growth for the year in 2021. We are seeing projections of between 1 and 1.5% growth in 2022. And projections that growth will slow in the US to under 1% in 2023. So again, overall, a bit of a pullback is expected as we move forward. But as I mentioned, the labor market continues to be stable for now. In South Carolina, we've seen employment growth across all sectors this year. And in fact, we've seen full employment recovery from all job losses during the pandemic, during 2020. With 2 exceptions, one being construction, where we have seen somewhat of a pullback as a result of rising interest rates and mortgage interest rates that have led to lower affordability. And then also leisure and hospitality, which also has not fully recovered the employment losses that were incurred in 2020. But that's primarily because leisure and hospitality has had such a large hole to climb out of, and they lost so many jobs, they simply haven't been able to recover all of them just yet. But overall in South Carolina, the labor market remains strong. So that begs the question of when we are likely to see a pullback. What do we need to be looking at, and why haven't we seen one yet? Why has the labor market been strong throughout 2022 in the face of rising interest rates? And the answer to that is that consumer spending also remains strong in 2022, and it's still at its pre-recession growth rates. And that's because we have seen throughout 2020 and 2021 a rapid recovery of the labor market. So people have been earning wages and spending them. And secondly, the $6 trillion stimulus package, which provided stimulus checks, it provided enhanced unemployment insurance benefits, as well as a number of tax credits. And collectively, when you see a rapid labor market recovery coupled with this federal stimulus, that's put a lot of cash into consumers' pockets. And in fact, the average balance sheet for American households, or rather the checking account balance average, is still about 30% higher today for the average American household than it was before the pandemic began in 2019 because of stimulus and the rapid recovery of the labor market. And so that means that consumers are in a better position today to be able to weather this eroding purchasing power that they are experiencing because of high inflation. So despite the fact that inflation has persisted, consumers have continued to spend. And we see that in the data where consumer spending rates, the growth rate of consumer spending, has still been on par with what we saw back in 2018 and 2019 before the pandemic began. But that's not going to last forever. Even though these checking account balances are elevated, they are moving in a downward direction. And we see projections of between 3 and 6 months before these household account balances get back to levels that are equivalent to where they were before the pandemic began. And once that happens, we are more likely to see a pullback in the labor market. Again, as consumer spending starts to pull back, that's going to have an effect on demand for most industries. And then accompanying that will be a pullback in the labor market overall and in total economic activity. So that is essentially why we're seeing this lag or this delayed effect between rising interest rates and any cooling of the job market and the broader economy as a whole. So to wrap up then, a couple of other metrics I just want to alert you to be on the lookout for as to when we can expect or when we are likely seeing a pullback overall. What do you need to be on the lookout for in the coming months to assess whether we are going to see and when we're going to see a pullback? Three primary metrics to keep your eye on. Number one is the job openings rate. And this is just defined as the percentage of jobs currently open and unfilled in the US economy. And right now, the job openings rate is significantly higher than where it normally is, given our unemployment rate of about 3.5% for the US as a whole. So as the job openings rate comes down, when it begins to come down, that means that employers are not looking to hire as much. And that's a sign that the labor market is cooling because we're seeing a cooling of overall demand. That is beginning to happen. We've seen the job openings rate level off this summer. It's not increasing as it was in the first half of 2022, but still very much elevated over where we would normally expect it to be, given an unemployment rate of around 3.5%. But the job openings rate, very important to keep our eye on as a signal of a pullback in overall demand. Secondly, the second metric to be on the lookout for is initial unemployment insurance claims. This is another very good leading indicator because it gives us some insight into the number of newly laid off people at the US level and in South Carolina. Initial unemployment insurance claims represents the people who are laid off from work and then file for unemployment insurance benefits. The first time that they go down and file after they are laid off from their employer, they are considered an initial claimant. And so those initial claims overall give us insight into layoff activity, particularly among small businesses, where we're not often able to see it in the news. Normally, when you see major layoffs from larger companies, that information is made public very quickly. But that's not always the case with smaller businesses. So initial unemployment insurance claims data, important to track as well. Again, right now, those data looking very strong. Initial claims are as low today as they were before the pandemic began. And then the final metric is consumer spending itself. That's important to track over time when we do begin to see consumer spending taper off in terms of its growth rate, if that begins to come down appreciably, again, a very direct sign that the economy is beginning to cool. So 3 metrics that we need to be watching out for. So finally, then, I'll just make one quick comment as we conclude. Even though we are expecting a bit of a slowdown in the coming year, it's important to keep in mind that a recession does not mean economic catastrophe. And I think this is an extremely important point, because I think that for many of us, we are used to thinking of recession as an economic catastrophe. That those are really synonymous terms. And that's because the last 2 recessions have been so impactful. If we think about 2020 and 2008, in both cases, we've seen a major economic downturn and major consequences resulting from the recessions that occurred during those periods. But that's not normal, and that's also not inevitable, and that is not what we are expecting over the next year. So again, even though we are looking at a possible slowdown within the next year, it's important to keep that in context and to what we're talking about and what we mean by that and what we don't mean by that. Because as we look forward, again, we're still coming down off of the stimulus effects that we've seen over the past 2 years. That's especially true in the housing market. So even though we're looking at a pullback, it's nothing. We are not looking at anything comparable to what we saw in 2008 and 2020. So that's an important point to keep in mind. So I will stop there. Thank you very much for your attention, and I'll be happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Dr. Von Essen. Certainly appreciate that. We do have some questions for you this morning. The first one's coming from Alan, and Alan's asking, how has South Carolina fared economically compared to other states?
Great question. South Carolina has done very well. So we see this across the board. We see this in terms of our labor market, especially where employment today is about 1.6% higher than it was right before the pandemic began. So we saw a rapid rebound of the labor market. And in fact, we have 1.6% more people working today than were working in 2019. If we compare that to the U.S. as a whole, for the United States, the U.S. just now got back to pre-recession levels of employment. And that just happened this summer. So the U.S. as a whole isn't up at all. It is just now fully recovered, whereas South Carolina is up 1.6%. We also have seen significant growth in our labor force. So we have more people coming off the sidelines and looking for work. So the labor force being defined as the number of people who are employed, as well as the number of people who are actively looking for jobs as well. And then more generally, South Carolina, I'm very bullish on South Carolina going forward because we do see more population growth in this area. And the projections suggest that the southeastern United States is going to see more population gains than any other region of the country over the next 20 years. So looking long term, we are very bullish on this area. We're going to benefit from those population gains. The housing market will certainly benefit. And we are also looking at more consumer goods markets being established. So think about the logistics industry with more companies like Walmart and Amazon locating in South Carolina, because they're going to be wanting to locate near their consumers. And like I said, we're going to see a significant population increase in this region of the country. And those companies are going to be following those consumers. And then finally, advanced manufacturing also continues to do well in South Carolina. And we expect for those trends to continue as well in the next decade. Advanced manufacturing has been driving our growth over the last 10 plus years. And we expect, again, that to continue because all the competitive advantages that South Carolina has had before the pandemic, we continue to maintain those going forward.
All right, our next question is coming to us from Jennifer. And Jennifer is asking how the Inflation Reduction Act will impact the projections on jobs, infusion of dollars, et cetera, to South Carolina.
Yeah, great question. I think if you look into the Inflation Reduction Act, I think it's a bit misleading in how it is named, because most of that most of the act is geared more towards climate change and towards changes in healthcare related policies with respect to costs and some other things. But it's not really geared towards inflation per se. And most projections that we have seen suggest that the impact on inflation itself is basically going to be negligible. There's not much there. Again, it's more about climate change and about healthcare costs than it is about inflation. I think the biggest metric to really look at for inflation going forward is just keeping our eye on the Fed and what they are looking to do, and how aggressive they remain with raising interest rates, which, as I mentioned before, there's no indication that they're going to be slowing down these rate hikes, which I think is a good thing, because that's what we need at this point to get inflation under control.
Our next question is coming to us from Jeff, and Jeff is asking, what does the Fed mean by a meaningful decline in inflation?
So yes, great question. I think that is up for some debate, what that looks like. I think in general, they're going to need to see a change in the overall trajectory of inflation, particularly the core inflation rate. So if we look at the headline number, which is 8.5%, that looks at all goods and services in the U.S. economy. The core inflation rate is the one that the Fed really pays close attention to, which excludes food prices and energy prices because they are so volatile and move around quite a bit. So, for example, the reason we saw inflation decline between June and July of this year, that we came down from 9.1 to 8.5%, that was exclusively due to gas prices and the fact that gas prices were starting to come back down. Now, that's a good thing, but it doesn't address the other sectors of the economy. And we are still seeing broad-based inflation across most industry sectors. And the core inflation rate is really what measures that. Core inflation is right around 6% right now. So the Fed is looking at the core inflation rate, and for that to go down for a significant period of time. Again, I would say that's at least multiple months, maybe 3 or 4 months, if not more, for them to get for them to be convinced that inflation, particularly core inflation, which measures, again, which really gets at this broad-based measure of core markets in the economy, making sure that we're seeing broad reduction over time and that it's not just a blip, that this really is a new trend.
We have several more questions for you, but unfortunately we only have time for one more question. And that last question will be from Mary. And Mary is asking that many are concerned about their stock market investments. And what would you say to those concerns? I
think we are almost certainly in for more volatility, I think, between now and the end of the year. With, again, going back to the Fed, I know I sometimes sound like a broken record that all eyes point to the Fed, but it really is true right now. And every time we see the Fed get aggressive and to continue to raise rates, that does rattle the markets, because markets are wanting to see lower inflation, but at the same time, raising rates does impact the short run outlook. So what does that mean for stocks? It means more volatility. I think of course, it's very hard to predict where the stock market's going to go in the short run, and what day-to-day activities are going to look like. But I think we're in for a period of higher volatility, certainly over the next 6 months, as we continue to see the Fed take action and hopefully get inflation under control.
Dr. Von Essen, we thank you so much for being with us today. I know from the amount of questions that we had, their listeners are certainly very, very appreciative of you taking your time to be with us and share some things about the South Carolina as well as the global economy with us.
Well, it's my pleasure. Thank you, Bill. It's always great to see you.
You as well. Hope to see you soon.
Likewise.
All right. That was Dr. Joey Von Essen, and certainly an excellent update from him. We're so appreciative of. We're going to shift gears right now, and we know another hot topic that's out there, and that's workforce housing. A few of our local businesses have taken action to supply workforce housing for their co-workers. We know that Sea Pines is added 96 beds to house 96 co-workers for them. Palmetto Bluff has also purchased a hotel to house some of their workforce. Other businesses in the Low Country are doing similar things. We also know that both the town of Bluffton as well as the town of Hilton Head Island are continuing to pursue solutions with that. And so we're really fortunate today to have Bluffton's town manager, Stephen Steeth, with us to talk to us a little bit about what's being done in Bluffton and also some of the units that are being discussed to be built along the May River. Stephen, nice to see you this morning, and thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. I'm going to try to shorten my presentation a little bit just because I have to hop off here in a little bit to head to another meeting, so I apologize. But as Bill said, this is a very important topic, not just for the town of Bluffton, but for the region. This is something that the town of Bluffton has made a priority and our town council has for many years. It's actually one of our 7 strategic focus areas for the town of Bluffton. In doing so, the town has actually purchased land with the anticipation of doing this public-private partnership for affordable housing. This includes the one that we're currently working on, which is on May River Road. And we're hoping to get it started sooner rather than later. So this, to kind of talk about this project, we have to go back about 2-3 years pre-COVID. The town put out an RFP for a public-private partnership, and I believe Hilton Head's going through the same process right now and trying to narrow down to their partner. We did this about a year ago and started working with them and trying to put together the agreement and get to an agreement and a process that we could all agree upon to get the desired results for this project. So council in spring of this year approved a agreement that they felt comfortable with, that we could go back and finalize the details on and get the agreement signed. We were able to get that done in August. And what that outlines is, so it serves as the master agreement that we hope to use not just for this project, but for future affordable housing projects moving forward. But this one is specifically for property we own on 1095 May River Road. And it's small in nature, but it's a start, and it's something that we hope that we can expand upon in future on other properties that we own. The town owns about 4 properties that we have for affordable housing. And the goal is that we can take this model and then use it on the other properties as well. So the one on 1095 May River Road is going to be around 12 to 14 units. We're going to have them at 60% of area median income, 80% of area median income, and 100% of area median income. They're all going to be owner occupied, which means that they will be purchased by those with a qualifying AMI. They're also going to come with an affordability covenant for 30 years that will be recorded with the property to ensure that these properties stay affordable, not just to the first buyers, but for 30 years, so that if the initial buyers decide to sell it in 5-10 years, there are restrictions on what they can sell it for. They have, the person they're selling to has to qualify for the same AMI that is going to be set with the property when they first buy it, and keep it affordable for at least 30 years moving forward to ensure that it's not just a affordable to the first buyer and then they can turn around in 5-10 years and sell it and put it back at market value. The way this is going to work is the town is mostly making a financial commitment, while the private developer is going to be actually we'll be making a financial commitment for the first couple of phases. So this is broken up into 3 phases, with the first phase being the architectural and engineering design. So the town is covering this cost with our partner at 100% with an agreed not to exceed price. And the reason we're willing to do that is because if something falls through, it doesn't move forward, we actually own the design for the project and we can find another partner to go out and move the project forward with us. Phase 2 is the horizontal construction. That's the infrastructure, the roads, the water, sewer, all the things that are needed to get the sites prepped to be able to construct the properties. The town will have a financial commitment into that, but that will be determined at what level and what amount once we figure out what the design is going to be for the entire project. We have an estimate, but we can't finalize it until we know what the entire site layout is going to look like. It's during this time that we'll actually transfer the property to our partner, so they can use that to go out and leverage and get what they need to be able to construct the buildings. Phase 3 is the vertical construction, the construction of the buildings, and that is 100% on our private partner, and they will oversee the qualification process, the sale of the units, the financing, and everything that goes along with finding the people to move into the units and getting them qualified. So the town's commitment is mostly to get the project moving forward and to help cover some of the initial costs for design and development, as well as giving the land, which reduces significantly the investment that our partner has to make and is able to make these units affordable whenever they go and find a qualifying person to purchase them. So that was our goal, was to make sure that we can find people that can qualify at the AMI level by making sure that the unit cost for the developer is low enough that they can get somebody in at that level. The other key to it is we want to make sure we have oversight over design, layout, and we have to approve all of that because we want to make sure they're representative of the community. We want to make sure that they are not seen as anything that is below community standards, and that the people who are going to be buying these units would be moving into any other unit that you would find throughout the town. So we will be having oversight of that as well. So timeline wise, we're hoping that we can get the architectural and engineering wrapped up here sometime towards the end of the year, the first of next year. They're working with local architects and engineers to move that forward now. So we're hoping that we can get that done sooner rather than later, and then figure out what we're going to be building and start working on getting the horizontal work moving forward. I will say that this is not the only action that the town has taken on affordable housing. We did a affordable housing project on Wharf Street about 7 or 8 years ago. It was one of our first ones where we did a few affordable housing units and sold them directly. But regionally, there's a regional housing trust fund that is being discussed by the Southern Low Country Board, and it's actually on the agenda for our town council next week to look to approve. And so far, the town of Hardyville and Yemassee have approved it. We're waiting for everybody else to hopefully approve it, but it would be a partnership between Beaufort County, Jasper County, Hilton Head, Bluffton, Hardyville, town of Port Royal, Yemassee, and Beaufort to create a regional housing trust fund, fund it for the next 10 years, and look at creating a regional solution to the affordable housing issue that we have out there. Town also has some programs that we have in place. We have a neighborhood assistance program that is to help people who are in housing units, the houses, stay in their house by doing some repair work, whether it's safe and dry, things like repairing their roof, making sure they have air conditioning, making sure if their floors are rotting, we can repair those. We convert from septic to sewer. We can partner with other groups like Low Country Council of Governments and to help with renovations. We have a tree mitigation program where we can make sure that if a tree is dangerous and threatening somebody's property, that we can help by mitigating that, and even replant to make sure that we're keeping our tree canopy in place. But the goal of that is to make sure that we keep people in their homes, because when people leave their homes that are affordable to them, a lot of times what happens is that property ends up going up for sale and it no longer becomes an affordable unit within the town. So we want to make sure we're keeping people within their homes. And even though it sounds like it doesn't fit in there, we also approved several historic preservation grant programs earlier this year, because we have several historic properties that are affordable within our historic district that people have lived in for decades. Their heirs property, they've been in multiple generational homes. so they can do renovation to get grants. We can help them with tax relief for repair based on state law. So there's some things that we've put in place. So while we're working on this one project, we're very excited to move forward with it. It is a priority for the town to not just work on this one project, but to look at it throughout the town overall, look at it regionally, and to try to put programs in place to address it more than just building units, but also making sure people get to stay in their homes, and that we're looking at this regionally. So that's all I have on that, and I'll be more than glad to answer any questions that I can.
Stephen, thank you for that. And I also want to put a plug in for our Bluffton Regional Business Council meeting, which will be next Wednesday, the 14th at 9 a.m. And that will be at Bluffton Town Hall, and Stephen will be our guest speaker as that. So you'll be able to hear more details about the housing projects as well as other updates that Stephen will be providing. And Stephen, just a couple questions for you, because I know you got to run. The first question is coming from Kim, and Kim is asking who would run the Regional Trust Fund.
So there would be a board that would be appointed by each of the funding members. So that board would be an oversight board that would make the determination on whether to bring in a contractor, create a 501c3 and hire a director. So the first step in that is to get all the towns and counties to approve, provide who's going to be their member to the oversight board, provide the funding, and then the oversight board will set the bylaws, the rules, and determine who's going to, how it's going to be ran moving forward. But the intergovernmental agreement that we're all looking to sign kind of sets some outlines on priorities for affordable housing, and it outlines how the board's going to operate and what their priorities are going to be.
Stephen, our last question for you before we let you run, get to your next meeting. John is asking, when do you expect groundbreaking and completion for the project?
Can't realistically give an answer for that yet. I wish I could say so. We'll know more once we get through design, but we're anticipating completion of all units hopefully within the next couple of years. But a lot of that is going to just depend on, as you heard, with what happens with the economy moving forward. And if the housing market stays as hot as it is, trying to find supplies and information like that. But for this project, we're hoping that we'll get completion within about 2 years. But I will say that is a very conservative estimate. But our partner and us are trying to push it as fast as we can, and we're hoping that the architect and engineering will move forward quicker rather than slower. Sorry, I was looking at the comment. Sorry, I drug on there.
Oh, that's fine. Stephen, thanks for being with us. We look forward to being with you again at 9 o'clock next Wednesday morning, Bluffton Town Hall. Open to anyone. We'd love to have you attend. And Stephen, we'll see you then, if not before.
All right. And if there's anybody that has any specific questions, please feel free to reach out to me by email or whatever, and I'll be more than glad to try to discuss however I can.
Very good. We'll see you. Have a great rest of your day.
All right, you too. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. We'll keep the conversation going and focusing on housing. We know that the market has cooled a little bit in some places, but still is red hot in other places. And relocation is happening all over the country. But one of the fastest growing is small towns is Bluffton, which I believe was number 36 small town in growth. And so here to talk to us about that is our good friend Gene Beck, who's the CEO of the Hilton Head Area Association of Realtors. Gene, good morning, and tell us what's going on in the real estate world.
All right. Well, great. Thanks for having me, Bill. Good morning to you. Good morning, everyone. So, the last couple of years, we've heard nothing but how the market has been so active, and we've had multiple offers and record sales, and real estate was a frenzy. And now we've moved to new words like it's shifting, it's changing, it's slowing down. What is happening out there? But, one thing that has not changed, and where Steve was just talking about the real estate market and Dr. Van Essen, was our low inventory that we have, and that has not changed. And I'll address that in a minute. But our local real estate market has been a mix of all those words. we do continue to see multiple offers, but not at the pace we had seen before. Properties that are renovated and are move-in ready, they're highly desirable, and there is still a large pool of buyers vying for those homes. And like you said, our region is very much desirable and a fast-growing area, where you said in Bluffton and Hardyville and such. So we do see that the pool of buyers is still there, anxiously looking to find a property for their own home. But our sellers' expectations, we've had to kind of reset. We've made they're now having to understand that properties are probably going to stay on the market longer. We're not on that 1 or 2 day sale, and they are taking longer to sell. Thereby, they have to strategize on their price point. And it does, if it doesn't sell within a certain time that they've determined by the counsel of their realtor, the property will likely see a price reduction. And we are seeing price reductions now. And that's something we haven't seen in a while. As I said when I started, one thing that hasn't changed is our low inventory. And while we have seen an increase in available properties, it is not nearly a stable market. So when I spoke on the Power Hour in June, there were 571 residential homes and condos available for sale through the Resides MLS, which is the local MLS here in our region. Today, that number is 821. Earlier this year, it was in the 200s. So you see, we've gone from 200s up to 800, a little over plus. But to provide some perspective in that, in September of 2019, there were 2,133 properties on the market. So, 2019 is a great benchmark. That was a strong and steady real estate market. So you can see we still have a very long way to go. So the next question I get a lot these days is about the interest rates. And Dr. Von Essen was just talking about interest rates and rising interest rates and how that is going to impact the real estate market as well. So here's an example of what I've received from one of our lenders. So in March of 21, the median national house price point was $326,350. A person taking out a 30-year mortgage at a 3.1 interest rate would, and that doesn't include the property tax and insurance, would be spending about $1,115 a month for their mortgage. Then you fast forward to March of 22, where the same house, because of appreciation and rising prices, is up more than 15%. So you're looking now, that price is costing $375,300. Same scenario, but interest rate at 5%. And you're looking at a monthly mortgage of $1,612. So that is an increase of $497 or $500 more a month for the exact same house. So you'll see that this was going to impede some people to achieving home ownership. However, even with the higher interest rate, it certainly can still be less expensive to own than to rent. And of course, we all know that owning a home is a financial investment as well as helps to build wealth. So if you've purchased at 5% and you see the interest rates go up to 6%, I think Dr. Vanessa was indicating we could see continuing to go up, and other economists have said the same thing. You're going to be happy about it 5%. And then, of course, if they go down lower, back down to our 2 to 3%, there's always an opportunity to refinance. But certainly we see that certainly purchasing a home can be considerably less expensive than even renting a home. So let me just get to some local numbers. I know people like to hear the latest data. So our latest data is July. The August reports will be out early next week, and you're more than welcome to go to our website, hhrealtor.com. They are open to the public under resources. You'll find all our market reports. But the median sales price for our region was up by 21% year to date. So we're at $485,000 is the median price point for our region. And closed sales are down, no surprise there, by 22% compared to year to date of July of 21. But the local volume of units sold and pending sales is more in line with 2019. So it's about 3,500 properties you're looking at. So in a month's time. So I think, or excuse me, year to date. So I think we're starting to see back to those numbers at 2019. So I'm going to switch and I'm going to say, let's talk about the future of real estate. What could it be like, and what will be the experience the consumer is going to have in the maybe not so distant future on real estate? So I was at a conference in the spring and I was attending a session called Emerging Trends in Real Estate. And here's some takeaways that I came with. So what if in the not too distant future, before you bought a home, you live in the property virtually through the metaverse? Today, we do virtual tours and tours that are take you from room by room. We've had buyers that have even purchased through FaceTime tours, but this is what they're saying could be the future of house hunting. Blockchains could make title companies a thing of the past, as secure data on the property is passed through blockchain. And according to a report from Redfin, nearly 1 in 9 first-time buyers sold cryptocurrency to help finance a down payment in 2021. And that's up 8.8% from 2020. And with the real estate market around 15 to 16% of the GDP, investors have spent $31 billion in real estate technology in 2021. So I leave you with those thoughts. I'm happy to answer any questions. But those are some things they're saying could be the future of real estate. Our market here, again, is still strong. I encourage everyone, when you're working with a realtor, they're the ones with the data, they're the ones with all the information, comparables, and can help counsel you into whatever your goals are in real estate. So with that, thank you, Bill. And again, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Gene, and thanks for giving this update about the current, and then also enjoyed hearing a little bit about the future and what that's looking like.
We'll see.
First question's coming to you from Andy, and Andy's asking, what new geographic areas are you seeing buyers coming from?
I don't think there's a new geographic area. I think traditionally we've been seeing a lot from the Northeast, your New York, Pennsylvania, Connecticut. We've seen Chicago and even California. We've seen people coming from there as well. I think that trend of work from home, we'll see how that impacts as companies now are starting to pull back on that a little bit and looking for people to return to the office. But I think that opportunity for work from home and flex times is going to still impact us and people coming from the different areas to be able to enjoy our quality of life, yet still have that career that they had from where they are before. I just had friends here move from Connecticut doing exactly that.
All right, thank you. Jan is asking if you're seeing buyers putting their home purchases on the long-term rental market.
Couldn't answer that question. I don't know what that trend is, to be quite honest with you. I wouldn't even be able to give an indicator of that. As far as if they're putting it onto the long-term market. Again, I think I go back to that work from home, that's really what has been moving people here. For a long time, we had people would be putting it, purchasing and then looking at retirement in, 5 to 10 years. But that has shifted a lot through the pandemic, and people have either moved that up, as we know, with a great resignation, or have, again, changed that flexibility. So I really wouldn't be able to give a knowledgeable answer to that question.
Gene, this next question may go right along that, and asking if what you would say about if what you're seeing is the properties that are being purchased are being put on the short-term rental market. Again, maybe one of those that you might not have the answer for as well.
Yeah, we don't really track that data. No one really tracks that data. Probably your short-term rental property managers have more in line with that data as far as how many of them turn from a new property owner into the short-term rental market. But that is still a way of investing for people. That is a way that people can help to build wealth into their future. And again, that idea of purchasing, putting it on the short-term rental market, and then moving it into a retirement property for them in the future has not been unusual.
Gene, I can't let the moment pass without recognizing you and saying congratulations for receiving the Bud Smith Leadership Award from the National Association. And it's a huge honor. Anytime you win an award from a national association is just a terrific honor, and one that I hope your members are very, very proud of you, and I know that we are. And congratulations for not only the work you do locally, regionally, statewide, but also on a national front as well. So congratulations for that.
Thank you, Bill. That's very nice of you to say something. Thank you very much. I'm honored to receive it, and it's my pleasure doing all this work. I always say I have one of the best jobs on the island. So
I'll argue with you about that, but I think we
All right.
both do. How about that?
Yeah, exactly. All right, we're together on that one.
There you go. Gene, thanks as always for being with
All
us.
right.
Great information, and I know our listeners always enjoy hearing what you have to say.
Great. Thanks, Bill. Everybody have a great day.
All right. Thank you. Our next speaker has served as the Beaufort County Treasurer since 2014. We know it's a tough job, and she's here to talk about how the housing market has impacted property taxes and deadlines that are coming up and other things. So we're really glad to have with us Maria Walls. Maria, thank you for joining us this morning. I know we've had you on before, but looking forward to another update from you.
Good morning. Good morning. I'm so excited to be here. So I will go ahead and get started with our presentation. And of course, I'm looking forward to the questions. All right. So we're going to talk a little bit about everything today. And Bill, can you hear me? Because it looks like my screen is frozen.
Yes, we hear you. We hear you. Thank you. Okay. Now we see your presentation as well.
Perfect. Okay, wonderful. So the overall gist that I want your viewers to and your members to get out of today's presentation is essentially how to set yourself up for success in the taxation process. We have so many different taxpayers and customers in Beaufort County each one's situation is as unique as that person. And so from a service standpoint, we try the Treasurer's Office to be as flexible and customized as we possibly can for those customers. So we're meeting them where they are, not where we want them to be. So first and foremost, keep your mailing address up to date. This seems so simple. But the majority of our South Carolina state law requirements mean that we have to send you a notification through the mail. And unfortunately, as many of our customers know, we cannot waive penalties or certain parts of the taxation process simply because a mailed item wasn't received. So keep your mailing address current. You can update it online at any time, and please don't rely on mail forwarding. If COVID has taught us anything, I don't know that the post office had, totally reliable service before COVID, but it certainly hasn't improved. And I think we all are aware of that. But for some reason, we don't expect it to affect our tax bill, and it very much does. So the next thing that I want your viewers to be aware of is, I always generally ask during a presentation, do you read every single word on your bill? And I will tell you that out of a room of 50, 25, 100 people, it doesn't matter. I never have more than 5 people raise their hand because life is busy, and what do you care about? The total amount due on the bill. But if you're going to read anything, please look at these 6 areas. So the first one right here is going to be your mailing address. We have to use a mailing address standardization service through the post office, or they charge us higher postage. So your address might be 123 Main Street on your property deed, but the post office says it should be 123 North Main Street. Make sure that's correct. When your address is standardized, we'll put something in your envelope to let you know that that's occurred. The next thing is going to be your tax authority group. If you live in Bluffton, this shouldn't say Hilton Head, especially for property that is mobile, a boat, a car, that sort of property type. Make sure your tax authority group, because all of the tax rates that you're going to pay are based on what is in that box. The next thing I want you to make sure you're looking at is that your assessment ratio is 4% if you are a full-time resident in your home. We have so many new customers moving to Beaufort County. And to be frank, Bill, so many people, I'm originally from New Jersey, they're so grateful to not be paying New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania property taxes that they think the 6% rate is a great deal. So they often don't believe me when I tell them, oh, you should be paying less if this is your only home, you live here full time, you just go through the application process with the assessor's office. So your viewers want to make sure that that's correct. The next thing is your value. We often, as elected officials and governing bodies, we focus on, and customers too, We focus on what the millage rate is, but value drives the bus in taxes. If your appraised value, your value is higher than you believe it should be, I don't care what kind of property type it is, make sure that you are appealing that value if you think that's appropriate, because a high value means higher taxes. That's it. It does not matter what the millage rate does. So make sure that you're in agreement with that. The next thing is just exemption values. We have disabled veterans exemptions that you may be eligible for. The homestead exemption is another big discount on your property taxes. If you're eligible, make sure you're getting them. And I want to be clear to everyone watching in your membership, there is no exemption that is automatic. There is no discount that is automatic. It does not matter how long you've lived in Beaufort County or that the assessor's office should know that you sold one house and moved to another. You have to reapply every time you have a title change, particularly for your legal residence exemption. So I want to make that very, very clear, and now is the time to apply. So last but not least, I am sure everyone watching has paid a bill late by accident, and taxes are no exception. Make sure you're noting the dates on the bottom of your bill, because the last thing we want is for you to be late, for you to pay us, send us a payment for the original amount due, and then we have to return that payment and let you know that you have to send us additional funds. It just creates a longer process for our customers. It's a headache. So avoid that by looking at these 6 things on your bill. So next, well, what if you don't want to receive a paper bill? Because the post office is increasingly unreliable, and even if they don't deliver your bill successfully, you're still responsible for paying on time. So our solution to that in the Treasurer's Office is My Beaufort County. We will do everything we can to ensure that you never miss another bill. You have all your records and bills and receipts in one place. We send you frequent reminders tailored specifically to our customers. So instead of sending out a mass mailer or a mass email, we know that John Smith has not paid. We can see that he has an account on My Beaufort County, and 5 days before the deadline, 2 days before the deadline, we're going to make sure that we're proactively re-communicating with Mr. John Smith to ensure that he's getting a reminder to get that bill paid on time. And last but not least, if you're paying with an e-check, the majority of our payments are actually paid by check. There are no additional fees. This costs our customers nothing. And the benefit of it is that if you sign up for e-billing, it costs the county nothing. The top 3 expenditures for the Treasurer's Office are postage and personnel. And I'm sorry, to me, postage provides nothing to our customers other than a potentially unsuccessful delivery method. This helps us save money from a taxpayer standpoint, from a budgetary standpoint, but it is so much more reliable, and it allows us to be more proactive in communicating with our customers. So I would encourage your viewers today and your membership to try it out and see if it's something that fits their needs. The next thing that I wanted to share is whether you sign up for My Beaufort County or you have paper bills, our installment payment plan. This is a pay in advance program. One of your earlier speakers was talking about heirs property. The Treasurer's Office does a lot of work with our heirs property groups in Beaufort County. And this is one of the programs I share a lot about, because with everything going on, I mean, there's just been so much in today's Power Hour. Everything going on today, set yourself up for success. Pay a little bit at a time for your real property and mobile homes. And we're going to send you frequent reminders. Again, proactive communication. Now, here is what you can do, and we've put the power of choice in the hands of our customers. You can pay the amount due on the installment bill we send, and if that's what you want to do, you use the payment method most convenient for you. But if you want to choose what to pay, which means that anyone watching, anyone in this program can literally send us any amount at any time that they're able to. It could be $5 a week. It could be $20 a month. We don't care. We will do everything we can to ensure that we apply it to your future tax bill, and at least you're getting ahead to a certain extent. If you're going to do that, you will have to pay by mail or in person at one of our office locations. But again, giving our customers flexibility, because sometimes paying that installment bill is not working in someone's budget, especially right now. know that you have other options. Okay, so it is a Chamber of Commerce, so I just wanted to add in some information about business personal property. There are three main things our business owners should know. Make sure that every year when you're filing your return, which is a business personal property return, that you know which entity you need to file with. And please don't assume that your CPA, your tax preparer, is automatically doing this for you. It may not be a part of your engagement letter, and you certainly want to ask to ensure that it's not missed. So know whether you're filing that with the Department of Revenue at the state or the Beaufort County Auditor's Office. Make sure you file it every year. Your property taxes will be based on that filing. If you don't file it on time or at all, you miss it completely, an estimated business value will be assessed for you. And in my 11 years in the Treasurer's Office, I have never seen that value be astronomically greater than what that business's real value was. So let's make sure that you're setting yourself up for success. Let's not pay more taxes than we have to, and that you're filing your return on time every year. So going forward, we are entering the end of our delinquency period, and statistically, it is not likely that many of your participants today are delinquent, but I want to share the information. Our customers fall into kind of two categories right now. The customers who are currently paid, they're all paid up. Here's what I need you to do if that's you. Please try signing up for e-billing. Now's the time to do it. Try it out with your annual bill, and if you think it's great, awesome. And you can add your other accounts to that. Make sure your mailing address is up to date, and ensure you're receiving all of your applicable discounts. Now, if you're a customer that doesn't have your bill paid, especially if it's real property, the tax sale is coming up. There are a few steps still leading up to that first Monday in October. The first is going to be, we're going to advertise all the delinquent real property in the newspaper, in the Island Packet, and online. The deadline to avoid the tax sale is September 30th at 5 p.m. You can't postmark your payment by that date. We have to receive it by the 30th at 5 p.m. And for all other property types, call our office if you need help. If you have questions, we want to help our customers because there are other collections programs that we utilize for other property types. And the last thing we want is our customers to be uninformed. This is a statutory process. We're required to follow through with it, but we're people living in the community here too. And we want to help. We're the experts in what we do, and we're here to assist in any way that we can. So we're always here for our customers, and it's not just during the day. We do have staff members who have flex hours that they are answering emails and chats in the evenings and on weekends. We do everything we can to make sure you're not being kept waiting. We have a brand new website with an interactive help center. We're very active on social media. And of course, you can always reach us by phone as well. And last but not least, my team would blame me if I didn't bring this up. Like so many other entities out there, we're hiring. One of the topics that keeps coming up, especially lately as we go into busy season, is our Hilton head office. During COVID, we furloughed almost a third of our team simply because we're customer facing. The majority of what we do is at the counter. And when our offices are closed, there are no customers. And as a fiscal conservative, I'm not going to pay someone to do nothing. So we furloughed a majority of our team, which at this point is now proving to be a challenge to fill those roles. We have not had a qualified candidate apply for the Hilton head office in almost 2 years. And while we've had new candidates join our Bluffton and Beaufort office, that seems to be where the interest is for employment and for candidates applying for positions. So if anyone watching themselves, their family members, their friends, we have a great team. I cannot say, I can fill a whole hour about how amazing my team is, and I'm so blessed to work with them. We have an incredible culture. Everything we do in the Treasurer's Office is built upon our vision and our mission and our core values. So it would be a great service to not just our team, but our community. If you know anyone looking for a great culture and a great working opportunity, we would love for them to apply at BeaufortCountySC.gov. So with that, I think that is the end of my presentation, and I would be so happy, Bill, to take questions.
All right, Maria, thank you so much for that detailed presentation. We've had several questions, and your presentation has answered several of those, which is very good.
Okay.
And one that I want to bring up now is coming from Gary. And Gary's asking, if I have an issue with my property tax reassessment, how do I address it?
So property tax reassessment and any real property value. So when he says reassessment, I'm assuming you mean on real property, which would be dirt and dwelling. You are going to contact the Beaufort County Assessor's Office, who is responsible for assessing values on all real property. Reassessment notices were mailed out on September 1st. On the back of the reassessment notice, it will provide you a lot of information on how to proceed with that. But if you did not receive one, think you should, or just have a general question, you want to reach out to the Beaufort County Assessor's Office. You can do that at assessor@bcgov.net. They're very responsive by email, or you can call at 843-255-2400. I almost said our number, don't call us.
All right, one other question for you, and that's coming from Robin. And Robin is asking, how quick is the resolution on a tax bill resolved?
Well, so the short answer of that is, unfortunately, I can't answer, because we typically cannot resolve issues on a tax bill. Generally, they're about value, which would be the assessor or auditor's office, or exemptions, which would be the assessor and auditor's office. If it's a payment issue, it certainly depends on the complexity. I will tell you the hardest payment issues to resolve are when our customers use their online bill pay, because our customers believe that it went out of their bank account and we have that funds, and that's not typically the case. The bank holds those funds for a period of time before they actually send them to the treasurer's office. So it really depends on the type of issue, but I don't know if she wants to be more specific, Bill. I think the assessor's office is taking about 2 months to process legal residence applications. There's plan on dealing with, for real property, plan on needing to interact with 3 different offices when you have an issue, particularly if it's about valuation or exemptions.
All right, Maria, thank you so much again for that detailed presentation. We thank you for the work that you do, and we look forward to talking to you again soon.
Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you. That's going to conclude today's Power Hour. Thanks again for tuning in. Stay safe, be kind, and we look forward to being with you next time. Have a great rest of your day.